Tell you what, this weekend in Canton, Ohio on Saturday night, it was a proud moment for Dick Vermeil, two of his favorite wide receivers of all time, Harold Carmichael and Isaac Bruce, with not a whole lot in common physically, but in terms of competitiveness, probably a lot. Both go into the Hall of Fame. Coach joins us now. Coach, thanks for being a part of the program. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Recovering from a nice weekend in Canton, Ohio, and seeing a lot of old friends and old players and old business people from the RAM office and everything. It was really an enjoyable weekend.
How about Harold Carmichael, who used to torch our St. Louis football Cardinals here? All those highlights seem to be against Norm Thompson and the Big Red. What a career he had. He had to wait a long time, but he deserves to be there.
No question. You know, anybody that gets in there deserves to be there. And if you're not in there, then you don't deserve to be in there, you know. And everyone sort of tends, who knows he's a real fine player, tends to put a time schedule in his own mind when he should have been in. I've noticed that at everybody that's introduced. Well, he should have been in. He should have been in. If you're not in, you're not in. That's all there is to it. And he deserves. Finally, you know, one year, I'm talking about 1978, he averaged 19.5 yards a reception. You know how hard that is to do?
Oh, my goodness. That's I can only think of one guy who did that before. Well, there's probably been a few, but Mel Gray from the football Cardinals. But what about Carmichael and that size? Because at 6'7", there's never been anybody like him. Did you know that, hey, this is going to be just fine?
Yeah, you know, when I got there, he had a good year before I got there. And then we moved the attack more to the run emphasis and everything, and then gradually improved the passing game. But you could, right off the bat, first you could see what a character kid he was. Very, very humble, almost naive to recognizing his own individual talents, which, you know, added to the depth of his humility. And just a hard-working kid. He was 6'8", 232 pounds. And I made him stay under. I made him during the season play at 230 or less, and told him if he got any bigger, I was going to move him to tight end, and that was a real threat for him. No, he was, you know, if he were playing today, we didn't have the back shoulder throws in those days. You know, we didn't throw the contested ball. We threw it to him when he was open, you know. So it's a little different principle. Christ, he'd catch 120 balls a season.
What did he have in common with Isaac Bruce?
Great hands, very fine work ethic. Once he got downfield, he was a lot faster than people knew he was. In fact, Isaac, the other night at the post-ceremony party, said, "Coach, I didn't realize how elusive Harold Carmichael was when he was playing. You know, because you assume a guy 6'8" is not going to be very elusive, but he was. He was a great quick screen runner."
I talked to Roland Williams about Isaac, and he talked about just how precise his routes were. He says that's the one thing he did better than anybody else.
No question. And his ability to separate. You know, some people today judge receivers and how they catch the ball in a crowd. My philosophy early, especially in my early phase of my career, was you're not supposed to be in a crowd. You're supposed to separate from the defender. You know, that catch your ball, run like hell. And Isaac could do both.
Dick Vermeil with us, Hollywood Casino Press Box on the all-new 590 The Fan. You mentioned seeing some of those old coaches. I saw you in that one row. You had Al Saunders, Mike Martz, John Ramsdell, basically everybody on the offensive side.
Yeah. You know, of course, Jim Hennepin, God bless him, wasn't with us. But, no, it was great. Have you heard about what happened to Isaac? You know, he had his whole presentation on his tablet, and it was on the podium. And when Chris Berman left the podium in the introduction, he took it with him. So Isaac got up to the podium to give his speech, and he didn't have it. So he put it together in his own mind, and he did a hell of a job, but he didn't have his notes.
That is so good. And I love the fact that he brought up the two wide receivers that were supposed to be better than he was as an NFL player, and how he used that as a slight and as a motivating thing in his life. It was kind of Michael Jordan-esque, and I guess a lot of great players do that.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes it bites you in the rear end when you do it, but yeah, I thought the great statement it was the finest catch of his career was Ricky Proehl's.
Yeah, that is cool. Well, did you have any alone time with Isaac, or have you had a chance to tell him like what he's meant to you over the years?
Yeah, Isaac and I have a very good relationship, and I know how he feels about me. He knows how I feel about him, and he's made some comments that I don't make public, but they're very meaningful to me, just like I'm sure you have friends that do the same with you out of respect and admiration. But he's in a great place in his life right now, kind of with his wife and everything. I got to see her at the party, had a nice visit with Marshall, nice visit with Kurt, a great visit with Orlando Pace and Carla. Roland Williams. It was, and Ricky Proehl. God, Ricky, I spent too much time sitting at a bar one night with Ricky, but we had a wonderful time.
Boy, you mentioned those names. Obviously great players, but boy, really a high football IQ, like with Marshall and with Kurt and Orlando. Boy, you had some bright players on that offense.
No question. Great players make fine coaches, okay? Players win games, not coaches. It's the coach's job to help them be what they have the ability to be and discipline them and create an atmosphere in which they can enjoy working and work the hell out of them and bring them together. And my staff and I were able to do that with that team. Every time I'm with those guys, they talk about the first 2 years of getting their ass kicked on the practice field every single day, which you can't do anymore. You just don't do it anymore because it's all guided by the NFL Players Association collective bargaining agreement. So anyway, that they really cherished the process.
I don't know if you heard that Bruce Arians quote the other day. Did you hear about that? Where the Buccaneers had a really bad practice, and he said, in the old days, if we had a practice like that, I'd get them on the line and make them run for 45 minutes, but I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. Well, hell, we used to start practice over. No matter where it was, we'd start the whole practice all over again.
And for our younger audience, because I was there in Macomb, you would be able to do 2 practices in pads. And what kind of heat and how many hours were you out there for?
I think the practices probably averaged 2.5 hours apiece.
And it was 100 degrees, too.
And more, yeah. But, you have to be somewhat intelligent about it, which I sometimes struggle with. But anyway, we could not do today what we did then. We just couldn't do it.
I asked Ricky because the story out there was that you guys would go days in practice with the greatest show on turf without the ball hitting the ground. And he said it wasn't days, Frank, it was weeks. That must have really been just a model of efficiency watching that thing every day at work.
Yeah. When you have a guy that can really throw the ball, like we had in Trent Green, like then Kurt, you almost never have a bad day in passing because that's so instinctive, innate, and ingrained. You might have a bad day in pass protection. You might have a bad day in coverage, but you almost never have a bad day throwing the football with the gifted ones.
I'm not sure that Trent would have been the MVP and had that historic season, but as he later proved with you, where he had 3 consecutive 4,000-yard passing seasons with the Chiefs, you would have won the Super Bowl with Trent.
I believe we would have. I think, Mike March is a gifted coach. And with he and his staff and maybe a little contribution from me, we would take advantage with what Trent could do best. And he didn't have many limitations, okay?
Did you ever have, alone time with Trent during that season? We all remember, your famous comments, we will rally around Kurt Warner. But you admired Trent so much. I mean, how did you try to soothe him? You're right in the middle of this incredibly great season, because I know you thought about his feelings.
I can remember him sitting on a training table in the facility there, rehabbing a knee as we go to practice, as we go to meetings, and I always tried to acknowledge always did. And then his teammates did too, including Kurt and the guys. We all really, really felt bad for him, and that's all you can do is pass on your passion and feelings for him and comfort and encourage him. And I think we did a good job of that. Hey, I thought enough of him to give a first-round pick for him, okay, to bring him to Kansas City Chiefs. And no one has ever said to me that was a mistake.
No.
He played the Pro Bowl twice. He quarterbacked us into the playoffs. We had won 9 games in a row, 9 straight. We're the only undefeated team in football. So it's because you have good players and good coaches, you can do those things.
Yeah, you had that great 13-3 season. You had a lot of really good players. Now, off the top of my head, I'm thinking, okay, 4 St. Louis Rams in the Hall, Willie Roaf and Gonzalez, that's 6, and Harold is 7. Am I missing anybody out that you coached that got to the Hall of Fame?
Well, Claude Humphrey.
Oh, yeah.
I had him 3 years at the Eagles. I think I have 11 players that I coached directly as a head coach, and 4 that were I was an assistant with Merlin Olsen, Deacon Jones, Jack Youngblood, and Tom Mack. So so I know what they look like. Okay, I know what they look like. Hey, coach, well, I worked with George Allen, Sid Gilman, Bill Walsh. I know what they look like.
Will you have another one in Torrey Holt?
Oh, no question. It's a guarantee. What you can't guarantee is the time it takes to get him in there. But he's been in the finals enough now that I believe, unless somebody comes out so spectacular and and retires and gets in on the first ballot, which I don't think they ought to do. But anyway, he'll be in there.
Okay, I got to ask you. Go ahead.
One day, Hudson Fletcher will be in there one day.
Oh, that's right. That's another one. Good point. You have 40. I'm not saying that any of the coaches that went into the Hall of Fame don't deserve to get there, because Jimmy Johnson was an unbelievable coach, and so was Bill Cowher. But you have 40 more victories than Jimmy Johnson. You coached in the same amount of Super Bowls. And as I've mentioned before, only you and Bill Parcells took 2 different teams to the Super Bowl and won division titles with 3 different teams. I want to get your reaction right now. How often do you think about yourself going in?
Very little. People talk to me about it more than I think about it, which I appreciate, and which you do, other people. And I would like it. It would be a real honor. But, my attitude, if you deserve to be in, you will be in. If you don't, you won't be in. Otherwise, I know people that really agonize over the vote every year, and if they don't get in, that ruins the whole season for them. And actually, sometimes they get bitter. I've known of cases when people emailed them and said, "Don't ever vote for me again. Don't ever include me in your voting." So I don't get involved that way. If you deserve to get in, you will. If you don't, you won't. And I go about it that way. I know I've been in the finals, and you have to have very, very strong advocates that can influence the voters. Now, for the seniors now, and I don't know what moves you into the senior category. There's only 5 guys, so you need 3 votes out of the 5. And if I get 3, I'll get in. If I don't, I don't, and we'll move on. Someone else will get in that deserves it.
With that said, you seem to be gaining a groundswell of support. That's the vibe I got in Canton. Are you feeling that at all?
I felt it. So many people talk to me about it. When I walked in to sit in my bleachers, the president of the Hall of Fame said, "You'll be next." I said, "I'm not going to hold my breath."
Coach,
anyway.
As we know, you can be emotional in talking about your players. How about your speech? That enshrining moment. If it happened, boy, that would be a powerful emotional moment for an emotional man.
No question, but I'm not writing it right now.
That's a good idea. Hey, I got to ask you, and this is great news for our wine lovers out there. Vermeil Wines is going to make the playoffs. You told me the other day. You're feeling good. The business is good.
Yeah. It's the first year we're in the black. 13 years to get in the black. Now, if you were coaching the NFL, you'd have been fired a long time ago.
That's great.
Losing 12 years, you'd never make it.
And if somebody's listening right now and they want to buy Vermeil Wines, how do they do it, Coach?
Just Google Vermeil Wines. Yeah, our reputation as a quality, low volume high quality wine is really grown. Our online sales are up. Our club membership is up. Even going through that, we were closed through 2020. But of course we won't have any 2020 red grapes because they were all lost due to smoke damage in the fire last year. So hopefully we won't have any more fires in our area.
Great stuff. Coach, honored to have you on the program. Great to see you in Canton this weekend. We'll stay in touch, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
All right. That is the great Dick Vermeil joining us